welcome to Founder Friday, where we sit down with the founders who are currently taking part in the RevTech Labs, Fintech, and Insurtech Accelerator program. My name is Ashley Everett. I am the program director here at RevTech Labs, and joining me today is Blesson Abraham, the founder of Cambio Money. Hi, Blesson. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Ashley, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yes, great. I mean, it's Friday, so it doesn't get any better than this, right?
No, it cannot get any better than this. Decent weather here in Chicago coming up. The Bears are playing the Packers, which is a big deal for us.
Oof.
And so fun weekend ahead.
Yes, well, great. Let's get you started for probably the best weekend ever then. To just get this session started, can you tell me a little bit about Cambio and what it is that you're currently working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So Cambio is a banking platform helping folks rebuild their finances. So specifically, we go and help individuals that have had some sort of financial blemishes. So they've had a item in collections, they've had their checking account in collections, they've had their loan in collections, and they're really trying to go ahead and rebuild their finances as a whole. This really affects roughly 100 million consumers, and 50% are usually between the ages of 18 to 45. So these are consumers that are in their prime credit building and utilization years. Also, as with a number of things, it disproportionately affects and impacts folks that are minority and impacts them in a severe way in regards to rebuilding. So we're a solution that really addresses that need and provides them a pathway to actually rebuild their finances.
That's great. Can you tell me why it is so hard to rebuild after like a financial hardship?
Yeah, so it's really a three-pronged approach that you have to go ahead and take to actually rebuild. So first is you got to manage your spending. Essentially, a simpler way of thinking about it is you got to reduce your spending on unnecessary stuff, right? So it's really hard to do that in the current marketplace, the current environment that we're in. The second thing that you have to do is actually go deal or settle your existing debt or accounts that are in collections, that are in a charged off status. And then the third thing that really you have to do is you have to build up that credit. You have to show a track record of being able to make payments on time. The challenge is there's a lot of solutions that are intended to go ahead and solve for that third piece, which is build up your credit. So you see a lot of credit builder loans, secured credit cards that are available to you. Number one and number two aren't easily available because number one is where we're talking about reducing spending, organizations that are encouraging you, especially from a banking perspective, not to spend more money, just simply don't actually exist today because that's how they generate their revenue. Business models are driven off of interchange income from a banking platform perspective. So if you don't do all three of those things, it takes you 7 years to go ahead and recover. And that's how people don't get out is, it's kind of the old adage of like, you can either take a pill or you can take a vitamin, right? And a lot of people go towards the immediate pill, hoping that it'll address it. And that's what those credit builder loans are. And they're great for if you're able to address one and two, but you have to take your vitamin. You have to take a process to actually go and rebuild. And those are three key areas that Cambio really builds upon.
That is a really great analogy. And you kind of started to touch on what I wanted to ask next, and that's who are some of your competitors and how are you different?
Yeah, so we do see a lot of, I would say, neobanks that are popping up in the space where they're trying to address some of the financial wellness needs of individuals. And then also, like I said, the credit building side. So, some of the more well-known neobanks that are out there, if you think about Chime, you think about Varo, you think about Moneyline, somewhat of the well-known companies. But again, they do concentrate more on the idea of helping this consumer base access basic banking services, providing them credit builder loans. But what they don't do is they don't really focus their attention on item number one, which is how do I go ahead and change my habits of spending? Because again, their business models are very reliant on that. Number two is how do I settle those items? They don't really do that side of it. So those are the competitors that we really kind of see in the space. How we're going about differentiating ourselves, Ashley, is we are really focused on how do we help individuals build better habits and address those items that are actually in collection. So first thing that we do is we encourage positive spending habits. So we actually reward people for doing the right things financially. So we don't reward you for spending more money. We reward you for paying your bills on time. We reward you for planning ahead and sticking to a plan that you've set for this upcoming paycheck. So For a lot of folks, it's not weeks at a time, or it's not even months at a time, it's days at a time that they're really trying to go ahead and quote unquote survive, right? So we really try to address that part of it. The second thing that we do is we go ahead and help folks settle existing loans by being able to verify those pieces and actually work with their collection agencies to actually make sure those items are actually dealt with. And then the third piece is we do offer credit builder loans. We do offer some of those other ancillary products to, again, build up that credit.
Yeah, no, that's great. To go back to what you were talking about before about this three-pronged approach, do you do that kind of simultaneously, working on all three at the same time, or is it trying to reduce spending first and then addressing those collections and doing it more as a step process?
Yeah, we actually do it all three at one time because the ultimate goal is, the outcome that we want folks to get to is to say, hey, I'm able to refi an auto loan today that I'm spending 20% interest on, where I can actually save $100, right? So in order to get to that outcome as quickly as possible so that it doesn't take you 7 years to get to that point, is ultimately we want to try to do this in 6 months or less is where we're really driving towards. So addressing all three of these in an automated fashion within our app enables really the members at the end of the day to get to that point in general.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then another thing that you were talking about is the rewards. So users get rewarded for good financial habits like paying bills on time. Can you talk a little bit about what those rewards are?
Yeah, absolutely. Just from a foundation perspective, the rewards program is really, like I said, intended to build better financial habits, which is backwards from what you see in general in banking overall, right? Like, so where we focus our attention on is first, it's building some foundational layers. Like, do you understand where your money is actually going? And so each day when you log in, you get a quiz that asks you, do you know where you spent your money yesterday? And you answer it. If you answer it correctly, you get points, or we call them internally coins. You said the other example, paying your bills on time, or even addressing the needs of making sure that for this upcoming paycheck that you're going to get deposited, setting up a plan. And if you stick to that plan from that spending perspective, short-term duration, small victories, if you do it, you get coins too. So the way that we pay it out is we pay out coins in the sense of cash credits back into your account. So you're able to go and cash that out, and you're able to really start to see movement really kind of happening at one point or another.
Okay, that's great. So I want to go even further back. Can you tell me a little bit about why you started Cambio Money, when it started, and kind of what traction have you seen since that launch?
Yeah, so started in 2020, and the reason why I started Cambio was I was actually one of these individuals looking for a way to go ahead and get out. So prior to this, I've worked in banking for almost 15 years now. In 2014, I started another company called Savvy Intel, and we were a data and analytics provider for banks and credit unions. And ultimately, during that period, I did what every logical entrepreneur does. I cashed out my 401k, I maxed out my credit cards, I tapped into all my savings and checking accounts. And as a result of it, I had negative effects. I had items go into collections, right? You're surviving at that point. Ultimately, my business started to turn around. We started to grow in the right direction. We got acquired in 2017. So we had a happy ending to our story in regards to where we were at and where we were headed. Unfortunately, for 100 million consumers, that's not their case. They're not necessarily building out a business, and there isn't an acquisition waiting for them. That's not the light at the end of the tunnel. So Cambio was really started based on that experience that I had, and then really what triggered it for me was hearing about how here in the state of Illinois, there's been a lot of lobbying efforts to increase fees for folks that are in this world in general. And that's what kind of got me moving in regards to saying, how is this really being addressed? And I think there's been progress made in regards to accessibility to banking accounts, but where it hasn't necessarily changed, and mainly because of the business model that kind of exists today, it hasn't really changed as to how you address the needs of this specific group of consumers, right? So we're very niche, we're very focused on these individuals. Since going live publicly, we've now acquired 2,100 members, and that's been unlimited marketing spend. And so we've also started to get reoccurring revenue from those individual members too, which is also really exciting that 3 months into the process, and I'm sorry, we went live in June of 2021. So since going live at that point, we're actually generating revenue in 3 months, and we've got a growing trend when it comes to new customers, new members that are joining our platform.
That is really, really impressive. So then tell me a little bit about what drew you to RevTech Labs and what is it that you'd like to get out of a program like this?
Yeah, so I think I've looked at a couple of different accelerator programs in the past, and I think what's really exciting about working with RevTech Labs is the networking, the relationships that you guys have. I also think foundationally, what RevTech Labs does is you set yourself up for success. Having done this before, what you don't think about is, hey, I need to go ahead and make sure my legal practice is done the right way, our practices or our policies are set up the right way. I need to make sure that I've got a data room set up. I've got to make sure that I've got my due diligence pieces set up. And those are all things that, if you don't address, and when you're going to raise funds or if you do get acquired, you need to deal with those items. You need to deal with the items of dealing with IP. You need to deal with the idea of how you go ahead and set up your team. So foundationally, that's the first part of it, right? That I think RevTech Labs does a phenomenal job of reinforcing and really providing the resources and tools for it. The second thing is just the network that RevTech Labs has available. For us, it's the banking partners that you guys work with today that are willing to work with companies like us that are impact focused. But then also I would say the expansion of what RevTech Labs offers. I think I've talked to you and your fellow team members, Ashley, in the past about our desire is to really build out an ecosystem for this consumer base that we're really targeting, where it's a community effect, right? So the community effect is more than just saying that we're going to go ahead and provide banking services. It's also getting into the insurance world. And RevTech Labs has that side of it. RevTech Labs has the health tech side of it, right? So there's this diversified offering that I think RevTech Labs offers to a company like us, and there's a lot of value in being a part of what you guys are doing.
Oh, that's great. Great testimonial for the RevTech Labs too. Just to kind of wrap us up, because I know the one thing that you said was building those kind of networks and those connections and relationships is really important for you at this phase. So to wrap us up, Blesson, what kind of partnerships and relationships are really important to you right now and kind of critical to where you're looking to go next?
Yeah, so we're starting to go ahead and build up a network of banking partners and lending partners that we're working with. Again, we're specifically trying to work with organizations that have goals around ESG and really focusing their attention on how do you go ahead and be more inclusive into the process. Because again, we're taking on people that feel like they're on the outside looking in. Again, just from my own personal story, like of going through it, you do feel like you're on an island by yourself, right? You don't know how you're going to dig your way out of it. So the way to solve this problem is we're really building a community where we've got consumers that are trying to do the right things as they continue to make progress towards the right steps. We want to have the right set of partners, lending partners, insurance partners that are willing to work with us and understand that there's an alternative way to actually go ahead and either underwrite loans for these individuals, underwrite insurance products for these individuals. So we're certainly looking for partners in that side of it.
Well, that's great. And I'm very excited to really watch where you go next, even well beyond our program. And thank you, of course, for joining me today and doing this session with me.
Thanks, Ashley. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And for everyone else watching, I will put in the show notes all of the information on Cambio and where you can learn more and connect. So please check that out in the description. And then until next week, everyone, stay safe and stay healthy.
Have a good weekend. Go Bears.